Estate Agency X, the UK's #1 estate agency podcast discussing the future of estate agency, entrepreneurship and business with hosts Mark Burgess and Rob Brady. So on this episode of Estate Agency X, Mark and I sit down and discuss EAX9 that we had on a month ago. There was a lot of talk on social media, a lot of photos shared of the day. So if you weren't a part of the day, we just go into this episode about the magic that happened. So what happened with our community, the talk we had with Daniel Priestley. Mark goes into actually talking about some of the misconceptions around some of the words we use as suppliers around data and marketing and nurturing. And we talk about just the highlights of what happened on the day. And if you're interested in ever coming to one of our EAX events, then this might be an episode to understand what actually happens. I hope you enjoy. So Mark, it's been a month since EAX9. So trying to recap that because lots happened since there as well.
Yeah.
But I thought for listeners out there, we had a lead up to what was happening in EAX9. We had some great, amazing response from the event. So I thought just as it being EAX to actually discuss how the event went and obviously what we learnt from it. Loads of insights shared and the community actually aspect to it as well. So what did you enjoy the most? What was your highlights probably from the event, I'd probably say, even during the event, post-event?
I think for me, leading up to the event, obviously I was putting together my presentations. And what I was trying to achieve when I was putting together my presentations was I was trying to demystify some confusing terms for agents. Terms that me, myself, have been guilty of using in the past that perhaps don't have enough context, like data or big data and all of that those sorts of terms. Nurturing, yeah, all of that sort of thing. And in the build up to the event, I was trying to simplify, bring it all the way back down to a place where an estate agent would go, shit, that makes sense. And so like my most pleasing part of the event was the amount of people that seemed to have light bulb moments from the event that were just like they'd heard it for the first time, even though I may have, I know for a fact that they had maybe been in the audience 4 or 5 times. The amount of people that were like, shit, get it. So that for me was probably the most important thing because it just allowed me to have more conversations where I felt like I was on the same wavelength with the person that was talking to me.
And let's dig into that a little bit more. So, because I saw the presentation, what I loved about the presentations actually is across all of them, you had this whole synergy of like cinematic, not death by PowerPoint. You see in some of them, and actually you could then see there was more meaning to what was going to be said rather than just, I've listed 10 points on there, read it, and I'm just going to talk to you about what is actually up on there. So whilst you're reading it, you're listening to what I'm saying, and it gets boring. So let's unpack that, because I saw your presentation before it, and you said you shouldn't have watched that.
You're not supposed to see that.
And I was like, I'm like, oh yeah, look at this, amazing. So let's unpack what is the new era, which was a part of your presentation. So. Let's look at data, for example. We can't not talk about data because of who we are. So what would you say the misconceptions before data, big data, that you articulated before and what you probably said in the presentation?
So for me, I guess one place where I feel like you start to lose people in the conversation, if you like, is even though we see it this way and we know why we would say it, when you say things like, the new era of estate agency and that sort of stuff, I feel like that's one of the places where you start to lose people because it's used so much in so many places for so many reasons, and then you throw words on top of that again have no meaning, like it's the era of data, it's the era of insights, it's the era of AI, and all of that means nothing to anybody. And so what they do is they go, shit, I don't know, I'm just going to go and sell some houses. So my presentation was really about I was trying to take it back to things that I'd spoken about maybe in 2016, 17, 18 that perhaps are clearer now because some of those things have happened. And I was really trying to identify that back in 2018, what we felt like we could see was going to happen from the build-up of being around disrupting industries for the 18 years before that, digital, helping companies move from analog to digital, and all of the different things, helping introduce marketing automations into the industry, and all of these things that we'd seen happen. We could see that all of those things were actually just a build-up towards what was going to happen in 2020, which in 2020 there would be a full-on crack appear inside a state agency, whereby you've got one side of the industry that would feel like it's a race to the bottom on fees and everybody's experiencing this and God knows what we're going to do, and another side of the industry that were just taking off on rocket ships and things were going fantastic. And when we were talking about it back then, it was really hard for people to see. And I think even now it's happening. It's really hard for people to see. And what happened in between the two was COVID. And COVID sort of delayed it because COVID was a boom time for all estate agents. So all of that kind of just got forgotten. The build up to it got forgotten. It was like, hey, this is happy days. Everything that you lot said was going to happen isn't happening. We're flying. And then the COVID, obviously the calm down from that and whatever else happened, you then have genuinely the cracks started to appear, and you've got many agents that would say what Liz trusted, rising interest rates, rising fuel prices, all of these things, plus an influx of competition, have led to their businesses really being in a difficult situation at the exact same time as we've got lots of agents reporting consistent record months. But what we could see was that depending on which side of that divide you were on, you were totally unable to believe that there was another side going on. Like, if you were on the bad side, you'd think I was making it up. If you were on the good side, you'd think I was making it up, basically. And so we finally could see this crack appearing, and which I tried to break down why I felt that crack was going to happen back in 2017, 18, and why it physically was happening now, which I'll go into in a minute. And then what we did was we brought agents on stage that were on the good side of the crack to just say for themselves, like, this isn't imaginary anymore. This isn't Mark or Iceberg believe this might happen. This is physically what's happening to us. It's mental. And there are plenty of agents in the audience that were on the bad side of that crack that were like, shit, that is actually happening. And so I broke it down into three main areas that needed a bit of what I felt was demystifying. First one being data, right? An overused term. Everybody's got data. Everybody's got, like, it doesn't matter what CRM system you're using. Everybody's like, yeah, I've got tons of data. I love data. They're bringing in data from third parties to talk about on their valuations. They love it. Everybody loves data. And all of that is not what I'm talking about when I've referred to data. So the way that I broke it down was threefold, really. Data without the right software to interrogate that data and then action is kind of irrelevant. So the first example I gave was around in 1952, the Met Office informed the government that their data was kind of showing there could potentially be a catastrophe on the horizon with toxic fumes from the coal mines mixing with a fog that was coming in. But no one really did anything about it. They sent a letter to the government to cover their backs. That just got filed, and in the December of that year, estimates say 10 to 12,000 people died because this toxic fog landed on London. So the data without the action is kind of pointless.
Mm.
I then related that to when I was an estate agent in the 90s. We'd take on a property, we'd put it into a brown paper wallet with all of the details, we'd keep it in a drawer, we'd write the viewings on it, we'd write the feedback on it. Eventually we'd get to memorandum of sale, then we'd go through the sales progression, then it would go to the secretary for invoicing. When the check came in, it would go in the basement, and the basement had tons of data, but nothing happening with it.
My first ever job was in an insurance company.
Right.
And that was admin, and my job was going into the basement,
Put things
with
in the
these
basement.
stacks of boxes and
Yeah,
trying to
with
find
data,
stuff
right.
that maybe if someone called or put it, store it in just archives.
Exactly. So picture that, tons of data, no action. After X amount of years, it all just gets burnt, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually CRMs come into the marketplace whereby you didn't need the basement anymore. You had digital storage, but still no action, no software, nothing taking advantage of that data. Basically, as a human, we want to limit the amount of data that we're being presented with, because otherwise things get confusing. We're going to archive most of it. It's there in case we need it. But I don't want too many, applicants to look at. I don't want too many choices of property. I don't want too much of anything, because human brain's not great at it.
And even on that part, the transition over between databases, there's always like a financial part if you're trying to transition over 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 contacts. So you'd automatically go, I'll do 10.
Yeah.
10 in the last 6 months or a year. Because, like you said, they have a 90, what am I going to do with it?
Yeah, and it's all relative, isn't it? If you've got 100,000 contacts, moving over 20 don't sound too bad. If you've got 5,000 contacts, moving over 1,000 don't sound too bad.
Yeah.
So, but the point is that I was trying to get to is that you need a combination of 3 things to be on the right side of this divide. You need data. So I'm not talking about names and email addresses. I'm talking about as much information as you can get from somebody based on the stage that they might be at. So let's say, for instance, that you're talking about somebody that might have done an instant valuation with you. You might only be able to get their property address, name, email. Maybe that's about it. If someone's done a full valuation with you, you may be able to get their reasons for moving, perhaps their circumstances, what they're looking to buy in the future. If someone's a buyer, you might be able to find out if they register with you, if they need a mortgage or if they've got a house to sell. Whereas, I don't know, if maybe they're just browsing your website, you might only be able to get an email address from them, download a guide or something. So as much data as you can get on the person. If they've gone right through the whole transaction, then you should have everything about this person, right? Everything that happened in sales progression, everything that happened before that. As much data as you can get, but then a software that's going to convert all that data that you would find confusing. It's going to remove it out of your everyday vision, but it's going to mine it for you and do stuff with it. And then it's going to produce you at the end a small amount of actions that you need to take so that you can see the wood for the trees. So as an example, the main thing that we were really focusing on at Estate Agency X was this registration process. So agents have become too reliant on portals, and I'm not coming from the point of view of it being expensive or, any of that side of the argument. I'm just coming from the point of view of you don't get the buyer data unless they inquire about a property. They're not coming to you to learn about new properties anymore.
No, just in the transaction.
Yeah, so you're getting inquiries, whereas roll it back, 30 years, people would come to estate agents to register. And because they came to estate agents to register, you'd find out they had a house to sell. And we can look across our systems because we have a full-blown registration system like no other estate agency software has ever done, which in itself needs explaining. But because we have that, our agents can start to launch properties to their database 14 days before the portal, which gives even more reason for people to register, which gives even more data, and the data shows that there's 20% of all registrations have got a property to sell not yet on the market, so they're going to get leads early. But you can't be expected to manage all of that because people are registering en masse. So the software will take care of the registration. It will mine through the data. It will look who's got houses to sell that are not on the market, who's got houses to sell that are on the market with other agents. It'll identify which ones of those people that have got properties in the areas you cover. It will put content in front of those people, and it will then bring to the front line people in the organisation just a small amount of people of like, you might want to touch base with these people and have this conversation with them.
Can I give you a good example of that?
Yeah.
For people listening out there who are thinking, okay, I need a version of this. Literally, I was just chatting to someone today, an agent today, and they've got a partner agency. Nothing about even the partner. It's partner agency. This could be done in a normal traditional sense. In their database, they had some flash up in the front of their dashboard in what we call rocks. Basically, the opportunities that the system's found. And they went onto their profile, and they had originally registered as a property to sell that was already on the market. But they'd just been reading around how to get their house sold in 2025 that they put out. So the system highlighted that person, and when they went on Rightmove, they were off Rightmove. So they called up and spoke to that person and said, just want to see you in our database, the usual stuff that you would do, how are you getting on? And they said, strangely enough, they said, we took our house off the market because we didn't get any action with the agent, and it was just really disappointing experience. So we've put it on hold for now, but we were considering looking to move in 2025. We just don't want the case of going on Rightmove and doing that side to it. She went and did the proposition and said, you don't have to go on Rightmove. We can find people for you if you wanted to go down this route. So they had that discussion, all that through that process, and then she managed to find people in her database that would view that property without Rightmove, and she just agreed a deal. It's 15 grand over the original agent's valuation, and like that's all off market, and that would have never been seen because that would have been someone that probably would have been in an archive database, because they weren't doing the transaction, they didn't have the house on the market, they'd had enough.
Yeah, of course, and so it's a great story, and because of the way that estate agency software works and has worked, most of the all of the estate agency CRMs, let's call it, were either built in the late 90s, very early 2000s, or they're replicas of those systems with a fresh lick of paint. So those systems are not going to ever do that stuff. However, just saying, let people register into your database could lead someone to thinking, well, I can do that. Yeah. I mean, you can register in any estate agent's database. So we're talking about something very, very different here. And what I loved about Estate Agency X, coming back to the point, was that in 2018, when we spoke about this, it was an imaginary idea. If we could get this back into a estate agency, you guys could win. And fortunately for us, there were some crazy early adopter people that thought, yeah, why not? Let's try it. But now what we were able to do at Estate Agency X was have some of the most well-recognised, famous estate agency owners on the stage going, yeah, this is mental. And we are having consecutive record months, and I don't understand anybody out there that's telling me it's a difficult market, which was crazy, because now it's not even, well, you say that, but no, this is actually happening. You don't even have to take a risk now.
Yeah, and I think the credit due to them being those ones that took that first step and got out of the line of everyone else. Yeah. Because you have to have the belief in it and back yourself, but it's not like I'm going to do this process tomorrow and I'm going to expect results to it. And I say to a lot of agents out there saying, when you go down this process, you probably won't find for a while that this doesn't make sense, but you need to get the backing of the proof to the public to say, no, this was what happened. Yeah. And you missed out.
Yeah, there were people that came to me afterwards saying, all right, so I do this registration thing. What do? Just go on social media and tell people to register? I was like, yep, that's exactly what you do. And not many people will register. Yeah. Where the registrations really start to come is like, all those people that contact you that have missed out on a property, the people in your organisation have got a note to tell them like, you should really be registering to learn about stuff before. Slowly, these registrations start to build up. As the registrations start to build up, you start to get presented with opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. And then as the registrations have also built up, you go to see those opportunities and you're able to actually physically show somebody in their living room, if I put this pin right where your house is, look, I've got 18 people that are live within the last 24 hours on my website looking specifically for a house in this exact location, in the price range we're talking about, with the bedrooms you want. I'm going to speak to those people first before you go and tell the world about, what your house is worth and we get it slightly wrong on Rightmove. These people have had to jump through specific hoops to get here. And all of a sudden, like, you're bringing some real IP to the table. That was another highlight for me, was listening to Daniel Priestley convert over some of this stuff into just general business terms.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he was talking about there was like this pyramid of value. At the bottom of it, you've got people that just are going to trade their time for money. I turn up to a job and I get paid an hourly rate. And then above that, you've got goods and services whereby, like, you might sell something, a pen, a pencil, or something like that. Above that, you've got IP, whereby I know a method of how to do something that no one else does. And so that's pretty valuable when you're starting to get to that stage. And at the very tip of the pyramid, you've got the data, if you've got the data. So
you missed one off there.
Sorry.
Skilled labour.
And
that's the most important one, wasn't it? Like because that was like, I trade my time for money, and then I try and upskill because I realise this isn't working out for me.
Yeah, I could be better at
it. Carry on, because that the top bit was fascinating.
And the top bit is the bit that most companies never figure out, and so they miss out on all the money. And that's the bit we're talking about here. If I can come to your house and say, I have a way that's of getting you the maximum for your property, and I'm willing to show you here. Here's my 12-step plan. And we can forget Rightmove for a minute, because anyone can do that for you. But I've got a 12-step plan on how to maximise the value of your property. So, where most agents are looking to sell your property as quickly as possible to get paid is a direct conflict with most sellers are looking to maximise the value of their property. Here's my 12-step plan on how to achieve what you want. Now I've shown them I've got some IP, and then all of a sudden their ears have pricked up and they've gone, oh, that's really interesting. The level up is if you've got the data. So then I'm able to go, and now let's look at my data in my database. Here's your house, and here's the people I've got that I can talk to. Now you are extremely valuable to that person. And so my talk, hearing from agents whereby literally they use these techniques and they've increased fees in some cases like 3 times. But they've all increased fees, they've all increased market share, they're all having phenomenal businesses. And it didn't happen overnight for them, but that's the hindsight of this is what happens.
And actually, I'd say, if we look back a couple of years ago when we had that post-COVID boom, it was easy just to chuck your property on Rightmove and say you're really good, and you got over asking price odds and all sorts of stuff like that. So in those times, you didn't necessarily have to think about 5 years down the line, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. What happens when this boom stops? And what I found with the agents that are on stage and the agents talking about it, maximised every single opportunity. So they built that in to then start to pull the people into the database.
Yeah.
To build those pools when they needed to.
They fixed the roof while it was sunny.
Yeah, and then so as the agents have come into this more tougher times, they've built this ongoing strategy because they could communicate to a massive market about this is our strategy and this is how we do. Not I've got to start from now and try and do it. But that's not to say you can't, because we've got new agents that have joined us who are seeing that vision, seeing that happening, and are now taking those necessary steps. But like you said, you have to have an IP, and with that, you have to have the strategy, and everyone needs to know the strategy. Not John in the office is going to say 3 days on Rightmove, but then another valuer, Steve or Kate, is going to go out and go, we'll do it tomorrow because you're desperate, and another person says we'll do it in 10 days, because all of a sudden it's like,
of course,
what's going on here?
That kind of ties in with some of the other points that we spoke about at EAX. There was 3 main things. That's that side of things. There was the human side of things. So I'm not saying, let's get computers to do everything, the estate agent can do nothing. What we're saying is, if you can get the right data and software, it will elevate the human side of your business, because you can spend time doing the bit a computer can't do, which is like building rapport, having conversations, picking up on the opportunities. At the moment, computers are not as good at humans at doing that, but they are much better at sorting through all the data. Whereas in the majority of businesses, not just estate agencies, they've got it the other way round. The humans are sorting through all the data, and the computers are just sitting there as digital storage devices. And maybe they do a couple of things for them, like send some confirmation emails or something, but they're not actually allowing the human to literally just do the human bit. So that was point 2. Point 3, which again links in with what you're talking about, was how could more estate agency owners learn to build a business instead of just an estate agency, which came really from my own experience of leaving school, failing every subject, overcoming multiple addictions, having dead-end jobs, getting nowhere, starting businesses and just trying to make some money, and that going okay for me, over to how did I get to the stage whereby I knew how to actually build a business and then go on and build multiple 7-figure, 8-figure, £1 million businesses. How do you do that? And how can an estate agent start to explore how to do that? Because they all know how to do estate agency. They could do it with their eyes closed. They could teach their staff how to do it. But how does the leadership team of the company move from being estate agents to running a business? So all the blocks started to slot together: data, software, process, the IP, all of that sort of thing, the stuff that will lead you to being a valuable company, almost on autopilot. Your people can then do the human side of things, which no problem, you can train them how to do that. You can get people to be very valuable. They can even build a personal brand without the worry of them running off and opening their own estate agency, because you have the IP and the data. And that while the owner of the business and the leadership team can then concentrate on how do I go about building a phenomenal business here. And so, we were just really then expanding it onto what is Iceberg Digital. Lifecycle is a software. What's Iceberg Digital? Iceberg Digital is the software, the networking, the training, and we also touched on the website side of things, whereby your websites will take the data from inside your software and rebuild themselves when somebody hits your website faster than you can blink, so that the website is all relevant to that person. What you just said there before, if that person from the agent you were talking to had gone and hit their website, if they had a Neuron website, it would have known that they had a property to sell that was on the market with another agent, and it would have come up with messages around what to do if you're not happy with your agent. It would have shown testimonials rather than just showing them the property search. So
again, what you're talking about, going back to data.
Yeah, so how you use the data, how you then not just say, I've got data, I've got tons of it. Yeah, but so what? Like, what's it doing? What's the software that you're paying for every month doing with that data?
And do you think that when it comes to trying to integrate with different providers, suppliers, platforms, websites, do you think that I always struggled when I was agency and we moved from different CRMs and we had marketing platforms and we had before we used another instant valuation tool, and I was trying to do stuff on the website, and I always struggled with the connectivity of all of it. So even someone registering in the website under a form didn't go into the system, and I know that sort of basic stuff now happens in any, especially in our life cycle system, they can do stuff and they can go on different journeys. But going forward, like what you just said about the website and delivering a phenomenal customer experience, not just being another estate agent. Do you find that the understanding of data is even a struggle between different providers then, in a form of like, if I'm collecting stuff in this system and I'm trying to put it on this web system, that person, they built their whole company, their whole database based on something completely different than they're building websites. These people are storing contact names and numbers. This one's doing an instant valuation. This one's doing some email nurturing. And the data sets at the bottom are, although they've got Mr. and Mrs., but they're the algorithms. How
I think it goes back to what I was saying at the start, the confusion, because people are looking at the end. They're looking at the end result without thinking of all the intricacies of it, because it's too confusing to think about. They're thinking, I need to get some nurturing. And someone comes along and says, well, I've got a database that will suck out your email addresses and nurture them. They go, brilliant. Well, that's that sorted then, isn't it? But the intricacies of it mean, okay, so I was talking to an agent the other day. They've got a software that they use to send market appraisal presentations, and it does some nurturing as well. On the face of it, that sounds quite good. They've got an instant valuation tool that they get, I think they get it free of charge for some network that they're in, and that also does some nurturing for them, so that's quite good. And then they've got their CRM system, which has got a bit of automation in it, and they're looking at a marketing system. So my immediately, because I'm stuck in that world, my brain immediately goes like this. So I do an instant val, and I start getting some nurturing content. And at that point, we're all good. But I go on and do a face-to-face val with you, and then the instant val system doesn't know I've done a face-to-face val with you, because they're two different systems. And so you also have to put me in your CRM so that I'm in your calendar. So now I'm getting instant valuation nurturing, which could well be, why don't you have a face-to-face valuation? But I've done a face-to-face valuation, and I'm getting some nurturing from that system. And I'm in your CRM, and I'm getting some nurturing from that system. So I'm getting 3 lots of emails from you with 3 conflicting messages. The estate agent is unaware of it. They're not really thinking about it. The end user is thinking, you lot are fucking idiots. And they're probably even unsubscribing. If I do happen to instruct, the market appraisal system now knows that, because I've instructed. If I can be bothered to update it. But I'm probably just going to put it onto my CRM as an instruction and forget the rest. So my market appraisal system is now still sending me content asking me if I want to instruct. And I'm still getting stuff from the instant valuation thing asking if I want a face-to-face valuation. And my CRM is sending me stuff now about onboarding. And they're going to invest in a marketing system which knows none of that. And that's where it all starts falling apart, right? So you don't have to figure that out if you step into an ecosystem like Lifecycle, because we figured it out.
And actually, I'll be honest with you, that's very common for people who have gone into that exploration that I did 2016, 17. Really, that's quite early on in the days, and that's when I came and met you. There was no real conversation around when I was an agent doing this, because it was like, yeah, I'm going ahead with this, because I'd figured out
You'd already been through that.
The shit that comes with it, and the thing with it, I always found was when we have agents that come with us coaching, that we come onto the coaching program, it's almost a bit like when agent says, I don't want to recruit another agent because it always comes with bad practices. Sometimes it's a real struggle when you're in an ecosystem, you've done that for so many years, and then you have an agent that comes through and has had, right, I'm going to set up an instant valuation journey, it's going to be 18 months long, it's going to be blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And also I want to do, now we do buyer registration, I'm going to chuck this and this. And then also I want to do, in case someone doesn't instruct me, I'm going to hold them in there for like 9 months. And then I'm like, no, don't do any of this shit, because it's catastrophically.
Yeah, we've already figured it out.
Like,
and that is why I tried at Estate Agency X to break it down just to, this all starts with registration, and you don't need to worry about it from there. Like, there'll be things that dawn on you at some point. What if my registration's now had a market appraisal? We've already figured it out. You don't have to worry about it. We've already figured all of the steps out for you. Now, you might decide to change the content at some point. You know, if you've got a website that changes based on if somebody's on the market with another agent, yeah, we've already figured it out. But you may decide that you want to put a different video on there. No problem. But you don't have to worry about what happens. Yeah, but what happens if they, I don't know, what happens if that person, I don't know, goes back to, they've instructed me now. What happens now when they hit the website? Like, don't worry, we've already figured it out. What will happen to the nurture journeys? No, we've already figured it out, because it's all in one system. It all knows what's going on. All of that I think, is where you start to lose people, because they start thinking like, this just sounds incredibly complicated. So at Estate Agency X, I was just rewinding it back down to, look, don't worry about all of that. Here's something that's pretty obvious. If all you're doing is putting houses on Rightmove, I say all you're doing, look, it's not as easy as that. You might be doing phenomenal video, you might be doing phenomenal photos, but at the end of it all, the way that the member of the public is seeing it is like, basically you put my house on Rightmove and then a buyer came along. That's going to lead you to catastrophe within the next few years. Inevitably, no question about it, you're going to be on the wrong side of that crack, because on the other side, there are agents that are building up IP and data who are going to be able to go there and offer their customers something that means if the person's interested, they need to use Rob Brady estate agents because it's their data and their IP. So that's all that someone needs to worry about at the moment, and the intricacies of how you do that can only be done inside a life cycle. Even if the person's sitting there thinking, no, it can't. I've got a system that can register people. Believe me, we can go into that conversation, and on stage 1, 2, 3, 4, it might be stage 10, you'll see where the whole thing falls apart.
It's interesting, actually. I was reading in some of the trade press today about they'd done some market research with different age groups around seeing the value of estate agents.
Right.
And as obviously got older, they had more value. But the 18 to 35 market said, even today, they said 40% of them have already said, I don't need to instruct an agent. I could do it myself, or I probably know someone within my social media network or some network that I could probably sell it to.
Yeah.
So there's no knowledge of, like, they don't need Rightmove effectively to do that. So you need to be building that network, that value proposition.
We went into it obviously in a lot more detail. It was a whole day event. We spoke about AI, what AI is going to bring to the table, how that will disrupt, conveyancing and estate agency even further, and all of these different things come into play. It's not just as simple as what we've explained on this podcast, but you asked, like, the breakdown, what I got out of it, and what I spoke about, and that was the main things that I spoke about, the gathering of bringing registrations and the distribution of property back to you as an agent, control the distribution again. And from that, you'll end up with incredible data that gets you listings and builds the value of your business. Once you've got that, invest more in websites and software that bring extra things to the table that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. And once you've got that, then if you want to do it with Iceberg, you can, or if you want to do it with somebody else, then you're going to have the free time to, like, work with world-class mentors who can show you how to build a business, people that have built £100 million companies that will tell you exactly how to hire the best staff every single time. It's never going to be a problem for you again. How you do this stuff, how you do brand, how you do, customer journeys, and how you do all of that sort of thing, so that you can build a phenomenal business. And then you've got all those layers that Dan was speaking about to have an incredibly valuable business, not just an estate agency that some days goes well and some days goes badly. I
was even, when I got back, bless Cal, sometimes I even got back the next day, I was like, right, Daniel Priestley was saying this, let's start talking about it, because obviously she's in the final stage of being trained to be a counsellor, and I was like, right, we need da-da-da-da, and she was looking at me thinking, oh my God, like, but it's even made me think, actually, like, he categorised it in a really good way. I want to finish off on one thing that I loved about the event. A little story. We've got a new client that's joined us recently, and two of the things, he had a couple of demos, as you would do with any systems moving over. He wanted to elevate where he wanted to be, and he said two of the things that attracted him to us was that whole nurturing aspect to it in a different way than what he's looked at in the past, and the other one was community. And he said, pre-2007 crash, as an agent, you'd go down the pub on a Friday, and it'd always be that network, seeing each other, banter, but it'd always be that friendliness. So even though you were at war with each other, there was always a partnership. And he said when the crash happened, it sort of lost that whole thing. No one got down the pub because no one had any money. And then he said post that, it came like this dog eat dog. You don't really have any partnerships with other agents in the area. And he said, what I loved about the joining you guys was actually looking at the videos and actually hearing about this community of agents that want to thrive together and move in the same direction and learn from each other and challenge each other to do. And he said that was one of the second things, the reason why he joined us. And obviously he said, not only I love the WhatsApp group you guys have, but I met him at EAX9 and we had Aaron on the stage, and he had obviously presented about his business and how he's sort of done it with his partner model. And that guy came up and actually said, hi Aaron, I'm actually in your patch, and started chatting, and they got on really well. And another one of our community members is in the same patch, and they were chatting away, so they're all talking about their area. And Aaron was like, do you know what, obviously I'm a few years down the line, and there's loads of stuff I've learned and I've developed out with everyone in Iceberg. So here's my mobile number. You know, if let's get together and I'll just run through some of the stuff I've learned to try and help elevate your business. And I thought, what a moment for that guy.
Yeah.
And actually proof that it doesn't have to be singular agents in particular areas. It could be a collaboration of agents that actually want to be the best of the best in their area together. And I don't know, just a really good moment. I just thought I'd share to people that if you are considering coming to like a future event that we've got, not only you get those light bulb moments, you get the ease of understanding this stuff and actually some strategies that not only world-class speakers do, but also world-class agents we have on stage, but also you have that ability to actually connect with agents that are not just chatting the same shit that they've done for 5-10 years down the line, who said they're going to try and support you out, but if they were in your area, they wouldn't really want to know, and actually join a proper
agents
network.
That I think as well, it's about the confidence that these agents have got that what they're doing is like strong and unique, and I'm happy to talk to you.
I know myself.
It don't affect what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And like, you know, another thing that Dan said in his talk was like, you know, I asked him as a question like, what's the point of mentoring and networking and all of that sort of stuff? And he said like, you know, he believes you're a product of the people you hang around with, right? You know, you hang around with the people that are in this room, you're gonna eventually like get where you want to go. And you know, icebergs, they're like, you know, big, strong, hard to move if they get very big.
Yeah. No, it's good. Really enjoyed actually listening to your thoughts on EX9.
Yeah.
And
it was a great event. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to this Estate Agency X podcast. Can you make sure that you're actually subscribed to this podcast channel if you liked the content? It helps us massively to get better guests, and it just helps us generally. So you might think you're subscribed, but just have a double check, whatever your podcast platform of preference is, that you're actually subscribed, and then that way we can continue to grow the channel and get better and better guests for you.